Good day, everyone. We are pleased to welcome you all to episode 5 on Smart Sustainable Cities Maturity Model and Impact Assessment, which is jointly co-organized with the Austrian Economics Center. This episode is part of ITU's webinar series on digital transformation for cities and communities. So before we officially start, we would like to invite you all to drop a quick message stating your name and the country from which you are connecting from. Without further delay, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Nasser Al-Marzuki, Chairman of ITUT Study Group 20, to give us his opening remarks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to episode 5 of ITU webinar series on digital transformation for cities and communities. Today's webinar is dedicated to the theme Smart Sustainable Cities Maturity Model and Impact Assessment, and has been jointly organized with the Austrian Economics Center. For years, ITU has actively worked with its diverse membership to support the development of smart, sustainable cities and coordinate the development of ICTs and digital technologies through standardization. Many cities understand that the transition to smart, sustainable cities is no longer an option. A successful smart strategy and digital transformation enable cities to cope with the sustainability pressure from rapid urbanization, deliver strong responses to global emergencies such as COVID-19, and ensure a better quality of life for all citizens. At the same time, they are also looking for self-assessment tools that would help them to determine the best approach to becoming a smart, sustainable city and ensuring the long-term vision for their smart strategies and are realized. As we will see today, international standards can immensely help in this regard. ITUT Study Group 20 is a lead study group on Internet of Things and smart cities and communities. And Study Group 20 has developed technical standards that contain guidance and methodologies for using these tools. For example, recommendation ITUT Y4904 describes a smart city maturity model that helps to identify the levels, key measures, goals, and actions that are recommended for cities to effectively progress towards their long-term goals of becoming a smart, sustainable city. On the other hand, recommendation ITUT Y4905 provides cities with a holistic framework to carry out a smart city impact assessment, which allows for better planning, setting expectations, and improving the overall quality of cities' smart strategy. I'm very excited that today we will be learning more about these standards. I would like to thank Ms. Barbara for her support in the organization of this event. So thank you very much, Barbara, for the organization of this event and everyone for joining here today. I wish you all a productive and informative webinar. I thank you all and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Marzuki. So before we delve into the heart of today's discussions, please take note of how the session will be run. Participants can submit their questions by typing in the Q&A icon seen at the bottom of your screens. Kindly note that the recording and all presentations will be made available on the event webpage. Also, closed captioning is available for this event. You may turn it on by enabling the closed captioning icon. We have an excellent list of panelists for today's discussion. Thus, without further ado, I would now like to call on Ms. Barbara Kohl, Director of the Austrian Economics Center and Vice President of the Austrian National Bank, to lead us through the session. Ms. Kohl, the floor is yours.
Hi, Barbara. Can you hear us? This is Christina Bueti from ITU. It would seem that you are on mute. So, dear colleagues, while we wait for Ms. Colm to reconnect again, I think that, oh, Barbara.
I am
okay.
here.
Excellent.
Yes.
Over to you.
Thank you. It's good to see you all, and apologies for the technical problems that we have had. But it's my pleasure and privilege to moderate this session. And thank you, Nasser, for your kind introductory remarks. My name is Barbara Kolm. I'm the director of the Austrian Economics Center and the vice president of the Austrian Central Bank. So thank you for the kind introduction that you had. And I'm really looking forward to this webinar and to be your moderator. In this session, we will be looking at some of the standards that are helping to define and measure the key functions of smart sustainable cities. We will also be looking at how smart sustainable cities naturally model and impact assessments are being implemented for the city's levels. If we have sufficient time, we will also have a Q&A session afterwards, and towards the end, I have invited all of our distinguished speakers to talk about 20 minutes, first round, and then we will have time for the questions. So be sure that you raise your hand, but also use the chat as an opportunity to ask the questions. And if we have sufficient time, we can, of course, always have this a long Q&A session afterwards as well. And we have lots of information to cover today. And so without further ado, I would really like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Orkan Gray, and he's a rapporteur of the question 7 of ITU T Study Group 20. And thank you very much, Orkan. The floor is yours after I have briefly introduced you, because I think this is very important to everybody of our listeners and attendees today, that they know what you have accomplished so far, and that you are the one that has been driving the smart sustainable city impact assessment in the past, and that you as a rapporteur, what you as a rapporteur have done. So Dr. Orkan Gray has more than 20 years of experience in management consulting in various industries, and he has worked in Dubai for the e-government and Dubai city government, and more recently in Smart Dubai office after the establishment of this office. He's also the co-rapporteur of the ITU Study Group 20, question 7 regarding evaluation and assessment of smart sustainable cities and communities. And I've had the privilege to work with Orkan for a couple of years, and on discussing on various KPIs and how we can best implement this. And he holds, of course, double major BS degrees in industrial and computer engineering, and an MS degree in electrical engineering, and a PhD in systems and controlling engineering from the University of Massachusetts in the US. So he's a truly international speaker and has a lot of experience on our today's issue. And without further ado, Orkan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colm. I'm humbled by the long introduction. I think you overestimated my experience. And good day to everyone, to all the attendees of the seminar today. I'm really humbled and excited to give this talk and hopefully share experiences all together in the area of smart and sustainable cities. So if you don't mind, I will just share my screen with the presentation. Basically, I would like to talk about the recommendation, which is the standard actually that ITU has developed earlier in collaboration with all the member states regarding the smart sustainable city impact assessment. So basically this work was conducted under the leadership of Mr. Nasser, who was giving us the introduction earlier, in the study group 20, which is all about Internet of Things and smart and sustainable cities and communities. I myself have been humbled to lead the question 7 as a rapporteur, which is regarding the evaluation and assessment of smart, sustainable cities and communities. And today, more specifically, in this question 7.1, we've actually developed several recommendations or standards. The one that I will be talking about is the Smart Sustainable City Impact Assessment, which is Y.4905, which is under the ITUT recommendations. So basically, what's impact assessment? If you look at impact assessment, it's a term that's been used quite a bit in the past, and it's quite a popular one also. The International Association for Impact Assessment, IAIA, defines the impact assessment as the process of identifying the future consequences of a current or proposed action. So basically, it's a forward-looking tool that cities can use as they undertake their smart city initiatives. So today you are at a certain stage. Let's say you have these smart and sustainable city initiatives, and we are implementing things for the future, for the long run. So the impact assessment essentially looks at the baseline, knows kind of where the city is today, and tries to understand the delta, the impact that the smart sustainable city initiatives will create in the future. So it's a framework. I'm just going to go through it briefly today, but it's a framework to understand how these smart sustainable city initiatives are actually impacting cities from different perspectives. So in that sense, it can be utilized by a number of stakeholders or organizations or entities in a city. For example, cities and municipal administrations can use it in their policy making and in their government sectors, enabling them to understand the direct and also indirect consequences of these initiatives. So it's a tool that cities themselves can use, but not only cities, it can also help the city residents and non-profit citizen organizations, NGOs, for example, also to understand the impact of these initiatives. Because sometimes, you know, in the city administrations, we tend to get almost busy with all these things, but the citizen side of it is also very important for the NGOs, for the organizations, for the constituents of the city to understand the impacts of these initiatives. Also, similarly, it can help the city administrators to determine appropriate trade-offs that they can make regarding these initiatives. Let's say you are a city administrator and you have a portfolio of maybe 10 or 15 or even sometimes hundreds of these city initiatives. And you know, they incur different results, different outcomes, they incur different expenditures, for example. It can also help us to trade off almost among these different initiatives. So it's a tool that we can use to also decide about these initiatives as we move forward in the cities. Similarly, private sector organizations can also align with these initiatives and understand the intended consequences of these initiatives. And then they can either participate, they can contribute to it, they can even propose their own solutions, or they can also justify their proposals and solutions by using impact assessment. So it has almost like multiple uses that can be beneficial for different stakeholders in a city. So within the framework, actually, we've looked at it from main 3 different dimensions or types, as we call them, in the Y.4905 recommendation. Those 3 types are social, economic, and environmental. And it's also very important for me to indicate that we have these 3 types, and the impact in some cases can be positive, but in some cases it can also be an adverse impact. So it's very important to identify not just the positive ones, but also the adverse ones as a result of analyzing the social, the economic, and the environmental side of things regarding these initiatives. So the framework essentially entails these 3 dimensions, which are social, economic, and environmental in the recommendation itself. Sorry. So I'm going to go through them one by one at a high level. We will first look at the social impact. The social impact is all about the people side of it, the community side of it. As you all know, we all live in cities. You know, social basically refers to how we live, how we work in the cities, how we organize even as human beings in the cities, in communities, or in the overall city itself in general. So it's looking at the social side of it. And it's also very important for me to indicate that the social impact can include perception issues as well as real issues out there in terms of the city itself. I want to emphasize this because sometimes there are not so positive maybe perceptions of some of these initiatives. So identifying the perception of the city constituents, of the citizens, for example, of the city residents is very important. Not just maybe the fact-driven, evidence-driven actual things, but also the perceptions of the citizens is very important in social impact. If we know the perceptions, we can probably communicate better and even change the perceptions of the city constituents for the positive impacts of these initiatives. So under the social impact, there are two sides to it in our framework, in the recommendation. One is the personal side of it, the individual aspects that are involved with these initiatives, smart sustainable city initiatives, but there's also the overall communal aspect or the city aspect, which is regarding a combination of individuals that are living in the city. On the social or communal aspects, these initiatives actually can change the lifestyle of residents. It can impact their cultural issues, maybe the way they interact with each other, their communal belonging, their communal aspects, and also their participation and engagement. So in the societal aspect, we look at these different issues that may arise that may be actually indicated by the citizens in the city itself. On the personal side, as you can imagine, there is the health and the well-being. Especially we've been going through a pandemic, as you know, health has become a major issue. And we've taken several actually smart initiatives in all the cities across the world. When we were writing this recommendation, health was just one of the issues, but today, as we have seen, it's becoming quite a prominent issue actually for the cities, but also the freedom, the privacy aspects maybe of individuals. Because with these ICT developments, data may be being shared within the cities. Freedom, privacy are also becoming quite important for the citizens themselves, and also their fears and aspirations. So essentially, we are looking at it from the people side of things in the social impact. And again, some of the tools that we can use is maybe on the more scientific side of things, on the more objective side of things, we can do surveys maybe. We can even quantitatively identify certain things, but we can also conduct qualitative assessments. We can do workshops with the citizens, we can do focus groups, we can meet NGOs, for example, so we can apply a systematic methodology of assessing the social impact in the city by engaging with different stakeholders that constitute the city itself. So this is the social impact overall within the framework. The second one is the economic impact. This is quite an important one because there are several actually smart city initiatives where economic impact is a very important area for the cities to identify. So as they undertake their smart sustainable city initiatives, they might have actually, in general, positive impacts in terms of business or economic output. For example, it can create value. These initiatives, innovation initiatives that we see in smart cities can increase the value added in the economy and also increase the city GDP to a certain extent. For example, we can create new industries. If you think about renewable energy today, it's becoming almost a major economic sector with the net zero targets, with the Paris Agreement. I'm just giving it as an example. So it can almost create a sector by itself and create additional value added in the economy. But there are also other areas that smart cities undertake, not just renewable energy, as you can imagine. There's a long spectrum of almost initiatives that are undertaken which positively impact the economies of the cities in general. It also impacts the wages and salaries. Sometimes talent becomes an issue. You know, we have high-paying jobs, for example, in the cities for these leading-edge emerging technology implementations, frontier technology implementations. But it can also create a divide on the other hand. So these are all captured under the economic impact. And the job and labor force, again, and even others on the economic side are very important. Now, some of these may not be easy to quantify. I understand it. there are certain tools that you can use if it's available in your city. For example, I'm not going to go to details in this session, but there's a concept called the Leontief input-output model, which is essentially a way for you to understand, for example, a demand in one sector may actually induce demand in other sectors also, or may take other sectors as an input. So this is the input-output model in the economy that you can use to make some estimates regarding the economic impact. Another example is the top-down econometric model, which is the statistical model to maybe identify, for example, how much does GDP increase when certain other variables are changed in the economy or in these initiatives, because these initiatives touch upon certain areas like employment, like maybe wages, like output in certain sectors. So how would the GDP impact it? We can actually create certain quantitative models and apply them to come up with estimates or projections with respect to economic impact. And I just want to highlight that the economic impact, maybe, as we mentioned it in the recommendation itself, has three types. There's a direct impact, there's a direct impact, indirect impact, and there's an induced impact. The direct impact is, if you do, for example, a smart city implementation, you make a certain investment, you create maybe employment for that smart city solution. It's a direct impact that comes with the initiative itself. The indirect impact, on the other hand, touches upon the supply side of things. These initiatives, yes, there's a direct impact regarding the solution itself, but it also entails suppliers providing certain maybe materials, certain maybe ICT, for example, products like hardware, software, solutions, services. So that's the supplier side of it, the indirect impact. And then there is the induced impact. As we all know, when there is an increase in terms of any kind of disposable income in the economy, which comes either from the direct or the indirect one that I mentioned, the induced impact, the increased disposable income gets spent actually in other industries. For example, when your salaries increase, you go buy other things, right? We go shopping, we go and drink coffee, for example. So that's not directly related to the smart city initiative, not directly related to the ICT, but it also induces almost an economic stimulus, a stimulus for you to spend more in other industries. So all these can be captured under the economic impact with respect to different things that I just mentioned. The third one is the environmental impact. So we looked at social side of it, we looked at the economic side of it, but the third one is the environmental impact. Again, there are many initiatives around the world regarding, for example, water management systems. We call them with the term smart water management, which essentially maybe reduces the consumption of water, not only the consumption by end users like ourselves, but also maybe leakages, for example, in the water distribution system. We deploy IoT sensors along the way in the water distribution, and it can identify leakages easily and help us to, for example, get rid of these losses, unwanted losses, undesirable losses in the water management. Similar thing for energy. We can reduce consumption of energy in general, or we can use renewable energies, for example, and also identify maybe transmission losses, generation losses, transmission losses, and distribution losses along the way when we distribute energy to the city constituents or citizens in general. Smart waste management systems. I don't want to go to details again, but these are all solutions that are being used, which may have a direct environmental, even positive impact, hopefully. If it's designed and implemented right, they will have positive impact. Greenhouse gas emissions, a very important topic globally, increasing sustainability, enhancing sustainability. We have greenhouse gas emissions. It's not only carbon dioxide emissions, but things like even nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, the particulate matters. So things that we do digitally, for example, circumvent the need, for example, to travel in the city. So instead of maybe doing things physically, when we do things digitally, because we don't travel, we also end up saving greenhouse gas emissions in the city. And then there might be others also, some things like biodiversity, for example. All these would be captured under the environmental impact. So basically, looking at these, let's say we've done the analysis, we look at it from the social side, from the economic side, from the environmental side. At some point, at the end of the impact assessment, we have to assess what we do with these impacts. Of course, the positive ones are very good for us to have. We will probably capitalize on those, leverage on those for our implementations. But on the adverse ones, on the negative ones, we can actually take certain decisions. We can, for example, accept the potential impact. We say, okay, there's a certain positive, maybe a bit of adverse, and we will accept it and proceed with this solution, with the proposed, let's say, initiative. Another one might be probably the adverse impact is at a certain level where we cannot proceed with it necessarily, and we might end up taking actions to reduce the adverse impacts. So maybe, for example, people raised certain concerns on the social impact side, that they were against certain issues of the initiative or certain aspects of the initiative. We can maybe take certain regulatory actions, or we can convince them, we can communicate better. It's just an example. Or on the economic side, similarly, we can maybe reduce some of the adverse impacts on the economic side. So that's reducing, essentially taking a direct action to reduce the adverse impacts. The third one is monitoring the impacts. So we accept the impact, we start the implementation, but we monitor it along the way to see if it's really evolving in the way that we projected. It might actually get worse in some cases. The adverse impacts might even increase along the way. So we monitor and take action accordingly. The fourth one is probably we did an impact assessment and it turned out with so much adverse impacts that we decide not to even undertake the initiative. So hopefully we will not be in that situation, but that's something also to consider, where the impact assessment will help us to decide in a better informed manner for these smart sustainable city initiatives. And the last one that I want to almost talk about is the scoping boundaries for the impact assessment. Let me make it clear that we have actually, this is a framework. We are flexible to even make decisions in terms of identifying the geographical area for impact assessment. We can say the whole city, the entire city is our target, or we can say a subset of it, geographically speaking. Maybe a town, for example, maybe a community will be our target in this impact assessment. So it allows us to almost select the boundaries from a geographical point of view. And then the second one is smart sustainable city initiatives. Again, smart city initiatives, there might be tens or hundreds of initiatives in a city. Are we going to do impact assessment for all of them? Or are we going to select a subset of those and conduct the assessment? It's very important to specify the scope in terms of the initiatives that the city undertakes. You might say, I'm going to do it only for example, smart water management, not all the other initiatives that we do in the city, or only for public services, or only for maybe mobility, things like that. Or even within the mobility, a single initiative, like electric vehicles, for example. So it's scoping in terms of the actual initiatives themselves. And the third one, the impact type, as you can imagine, we have these three impact types: social, economic, and environmental. We can say, we will not conduct all three. We will only conduct an economic one, or we will conduct maybe economic and environmental, or social and environmental. So it gives us the flexibility to select the type of impact that we want to conduct when we apply the recommendation, the framework itself in the impact assessment. So thank you so much. I hope I didn't make the story long, but three main areas of social, economic, and environmental are quite important in this framework for impact assessment. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Orkan. I think you did a wonderful job, just not only staying in time, but giving us an overview that really tells everybody where we stand with the progress of the working groups and what we have done so far. And I'm glad that you focused on the three: the social, economic, and environmental impact types, and that we can be also a little bit flexible about playing around with that. But I think this gives us a lot of floor for our discussion later. And without further ado, I would simply like to introduce our next speaker. And Again, please be prepared, dear audience, to also send questions via the chat. I'll see them and I will ask them. Our next speaker is Yun Li, and she's the director of the Technical and Industry Standard Department at the TCENT, China. She's also an editor of several ITU recommendations, including ITU Y4904 Smart Sustainable City Maturity Model. Yun Li has more than 10 years of experience in information and communications technology and in standardization activities. She holds a BSc and a PhD degrees in e-commerce with law and electronic engineering from Queen Mary University of London, UK. So Yun, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to seeing you and to hearing you.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for having me here today to share some of our exciting SG20's work for Smart Sustainable City Maturity Model, which is actually a published recommendation. Now the number is Y4903, and this recommendation is actually developed within the Q7, led by Dr. Okan, our previous speaker, and also together with the delegates and experts from SG20. So I'm also one of the key editors for this recommendation, and I have joined SG20 for more than 5 years, and I'm also the several committee members in other smart city related, both international or national standardization working groups such as the ISO-IEC and also the China National Smart City Standardization Group. So before we go into introduce the smart city maturity model, I want to share with you some background and exciting project that my current organization is taking. So Tencent is a global technology leader and one of the largest technology companies in Asia. Tencent Cloud is a part of a rich digital ecosystem that includes some of the China top social messaging, mobile payment, gaming, digital literature, music streaming, and also video platforms. Tencent is also actively participate and contribute to the Smart Sustainable City Development China. We have conducted several projects at city level, such as in Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and other cities in China. And most recently, we have announced a 2 million square meters net city project, which is located in Dachanwan Port District of Shenzhen. This project will be focusing on people and also the environmental, and together to integrate some fancy technologies that we are having, such as AI, IoT, and also the cloud computing, etc. So we are on the way to make more contributions to the smart sustainable city, and we are looking forward to see the outcome of the project. And then let's go back to our key topic, the maturity model for smart sustainable city. So the maturity model is a verified assessment which help organizations to understand their current level of capabilities and performance in the context of their own business objectives and compared to similar organizations. The Capability Maturity Model Integration, CMMI, is a process improvement framework developed more than 20 years ago, and it is widely adapted by organizations of all sizes worldwide to prove their efficiency and reputation. CMMI has defined 5 maturity levels, which are the initial, managed, defined, measured, and optimized. The latest version 2 CMMI was actually published in 2018. According to CMMI institution, the benefits of CMMI, including improving business performance, leverage current best practice, build agile resilience and scale, increase value of benchmarking, and accelerate adoption. It has a great success in terms of the helping the organization to prove their performance gradually. So when it comes to smart city, in order to streamline costs, reduce rework and defect rates, improve timelines and quality during the construction and development of smart sustainable city, how to measure the development achievement is always one of the key answers that the city mayors and the decision makers wants to know. That's why the key performance indicators for SSC is one of the earliest works since the establishment of SG20. Actually, SG20 has already published 3 recommendations focusing on the key performance indicator for smart sustainable city. With a set of already published KPI, there is still some challenges need to be addressed for smart sustainable city development. The first one is how to reflect the continuous improvement for smart city development over time. And the second one will be how to provide straightforward explanations to city mayors and the decision makers for the achievement. So a process improvement framework which can show the result of the outcome of the project with a simple and straightforward way is really necessary. Combine the successful experience of CMMI, that's come to us, maybe the maturity model might be the right answer to solve the above mentioned questions. So the smart sustainable city maturity model is designed to work cities through the process of becoming a smart sustainable city. It can help the city to describe general smart sustainable city goals, recognizing that this will be vary from city to city. Also, it can help city to assess the current situation in development their smart sustainable cities. Thirdly, it will also assist the city in formulating a development strategy and outline the necessary milestones along over the time. And then it can also learn the challenges and the global best practice in developing smart sustainable city worldwide. And last but not the least, it will also help cities to do self-evaluation and enable them to share the result with other cities. So since 2017, SG20 has begun to work on smart sustainable city maturity model in question 7. After around 2 years hard work, discussion and improvement, the recommendation ITUT YDOL 4904 is officially published and now is available in 6 languages from ITUT website. So for the following part, I will introduce some more detailed information about the content of this recommendation. The Smart Sustainable City Maturity Model provided in ITUT YDOL 4904 measures achievement of SDGs in accordance with the ICT development of the city. To align with SDGs, the model has included 3 dimensions, which are economic, social, and environmental. Within each dimension, there is 5 maturity levels. I will introduce the dimension and the maturity levels description more in detail later. In general, the city needs to accomplish all targeted achievement for selected dimension in order to reach a certain maturity level for that dimension. Subsequently, the city's SSC maturity levels can be determined by combining the maturity levels of the 3 dimensions or selected dimensions. The key performance indicators, among other factors, can reflect the city's performance and achievement that they are recommended to be included for assessing maturity level. Based on the definition of smart sustainable city and the UN SDGs, the 3 dimensions within the maturity model are the economic, environmental, and the social. Typically, the economic is the ability to generate income and employment for the livelihood of the citizens. And environmental is the ability to protect the existing as well as the future quality and reproducibility of natural resources. So social aspect reflect the ability to ensure that the welfare, such as safety, health, education, etc., of the citizens can be equally delivered despite the differences such as the background, race, or gender. And within each dimension, cities could select their focusing topics to organize the smart sustainable maturity model. The city can organize different topics into 3 dimensions, which adapted and reflect their approach of their smart city development strategy. In WIDO 4904, we have provided an example as shown in this slide. The topics that are selected in each dimension is actually aligned with the KPIs we have developed in SG20 in WIDO 4900 series. So this is just give a reference for the readers and audience on how this is work. And then within each dimension, there is 5 maturity levels. Each maturity level is explained in terms of level goals, common achievement, key practice, and also the KPIs they need to reach. Here, I only show the goal for each level just to give some general sense on how the progress is reflected at each level. To complete a maturity model, descriptions and goals for each level in each dimension need to be developed by cities themselves. Please also note that this recommendation provides dimensions and the maturity levels. However, the target achievement and their definitions for each levels may be adjusted by cities themselves based on their development objectives and current circumstances. Once the model is ready, the next very important thing is to learn how to use it. So in the recommendation, we also provide a 5-step guidelines for cities to perform the maturity assessment using the maturity model. Together, we also provide some useful tools for your convenience. Now I will introduce the guideline step by step. The first step is map KPIs into the maturity model. As mentioned before, KPI is one aspect that is recommended to take into consideration while develop a maturity model. This step aims to identify key areas for smart sustainable city development and also select corresponding measurable KPIs so that the city will be able to measure their achievements after the development has been taken. An example mapping table for the KPI is provided in the recommendation. City may use this table to fill in their mapping of the KPIs. And also for those cities choosing to use the Smart Sustainable City KPIs, which are published by ITU, specifically the ITUT WIDO 490 ITUT WIDO 4901, 4902, and 4903. This recommendation also provides the mapping of the KPIs for each maturity level in an annex and appendix. But for this presentation, I just show the empty table as a tool so that cities could fill in the table by themselves. The second step is to prepare the maturity assessment related achievement and the KPI targets value for each maturity level. This step aims to identify specific achievements need to be accomplished for each dimension and each level. And an achievement table is also provided in the table in the recommendation. For each dimension, the achievements are recommended to include strategy, infrastructure, data, services, and applications, assessment, and also KPI performance. In YDOL 4904, recommendation achievements are provided with detailed description. And similarly here, I only show the empty table as a tool. Actually, the city can fill in the table or even adjust this table, taking their particular consideration into account. Besides the KPI performance, the other achievement could be descriptive goals, but the result of this achievement is recommended to be reflected as the measurable result by KPI, so that similarly, cities will be able to measure them after the development. Then the third step is to develop the performance metrics to show the maturity roadmap by setting target values for KPIs at each maturity level based on the city situation and the strategy. This is actually the final step to build the maturity model for a city to conduct maturity assessment. The performance matrix is a combination of KPI and their target value. The long-term target value and the interim target values for KPIs for each maturity levels should be determined within the city's SSC strategy. For illustration purpose, the performance matrix developed with target values for ICT infrastructure, particular KPI is provided as example. Similar work need to be carried out for all selected KPIs, include the maturity model that has been developed by the city. With all preparation work done, it comes to the next step, which is they conduct the maturity assessment at the beginning and also at the different stages during the smart sustainable city development and determine the performance of the city. Then after the assessment is taken, it is also recommended to compare the city's performance with respect to their baseline performance. The result of the comparison are recommended to include the result of the assessment, suggested actions, or any other suitable information that are required by the maturity model. So above is a very brief introduction about what we have included in the recommendation. And after the recommendation is officially published, this is also a very important aspect that we need to take in is how we can implement this recommendation in cities. So we have noticed that SG20 has close collaboration with U4SSC, and U4SSC has shown us a really good examples to promote, implement, and pilot the smart sustainable city KPI recommendations. So maybe we could take the similar approach for the promotion of YDOL 4904 Smart Sustainable City Maturity Model, such as we can call for verification reports, case studies, and also some fact sheets, and also the city snapshots for their implementation. That's currently my thought. Maybe we can explore this direction a little bit if there are more cities show their interest to take part in these initiatives. So that's all from my part, and thank you for participating. Thank you. I will hand back the floor to Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoon. I think it's a wonderful summary with additional aspects that Okan was already touching upon, and you were very much in detail. And I really liked your slide 3 when you mentioned the challenges that need to be addressed and the maturity model. Of course, we do not stand still, and cities are in constant development, further advancement, and we see external shocks that also are related to cities. So I think it's very important that we have a close look at how we can best implement. Thank you very much for those remarks. And there are already a couple of questions that I see on the screen, but I would like to introduce our third speaker now, and then we start with our debate. Thank you very much so far. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our dear friend from Brazil, Luisa Pazeto, and good morning, or actually good night to you. Thank you for getting up and to be with us at this not very nice time of the night for you. Luisa is with the Intelligent Platform Coordinator, the researcher of the Maturity Model Telecommunications Infrastructure Projects of the Ministry of Communications in Brazil. And the key performance indicators from the Brazilian Smart Sustainable Cities U4SCC for the goal of the southern countries. That's her responsibility. She is an economist by training and an administrator specialized in management systems for sustainable development with a PhD from UNICAMP, a research coordinator of the project Maturity Model for Smart and Sustainable Cities, as I already mentioned, for the Global South. So not only Brazil, Latin America, but the Global South. And in the era of climate change, she's a collaborator in the Environment and Climate Change GIES. So without further ado, thank you again for joining us, Luisa. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one moment, please.
We can see your slide. It's all good. Thank you.
Okay. You can see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
But it's still not the entire full-size mode.
Yes, one moment, please. I don't have. Oh.
No worries. We know it's late for you.
Okay.
And
it's okay.
Works perfect. So where's yours, Luisa? Go ahead.
Okay, my apologies. I'm Luisa from Brazil. Many thanks for the opportunity to take about Brazilian maturity model, or simple intelligent platform, not smart platform, intelligent. Gente in Brazil is people, and the platform is intelligent people, intelligent platform, okay? The intelligent platform is a digital system for public governance. Is our suggestion for MSSC-ITU for Latin American and South Global countries. Is a public governance initiative coordinator to MCT, MDR, MCOM Brazil, Science and Technology, Regional Development and Communication Ministers in Brazil. For urban development, digital transformation, and institutional capabilities. Is in compliance with Objective 11 SDG and 8 and 8.3 Brazilian Chart Sustainable Smart Cities. Has developed a set of national and international KPIs, 18 urban development and 34 institutional capabilities, for making decisions about public policies with participation, inclusion, and equity. Our opportunities for public governance is a support series with analysis and recommendations, customized information just in time, is a open system, digital, for all people, academy, policymakers, population, and the others stakeholders. Brazil is a big plural and continental country with 5,500 diverse cities. And our KPIs principles and goals are similar with the ITU model: comprehensiveness, available, accuracy, and timeless. The difference is our indicators don't make a ranking of the seats. It's only diagnostics to be performed. Okay. The goals of our Brazilian model are allow diagnostics to be performed, contribute with federal, state, and municipal public managers, and no generation of ranking of the seats. For a Brazilian reality, we are a continental country with 5,500 cities in Brazil, diverse, and 2 new maturity modules are building for understanding our diverse cities, because 1, access, and 2, commitment. And level 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is similar ITU model. Okay, only first level and second level is new maturity levels from Brazil. Okay, in Brazil, 2,000 cities doesn't have master plan, and this depending on the administration funds. And now you have 2 new levels to understand the Brazilian cities. The framework is similar, the ITU model, 3-dimension, sustainable, economic, environment, social, with topics, and 1-dimension characterization, but only for information about population, jobs, finance, is not in KPIs for the understand the cities, only information about the cities. Okay. Our difference is in the axis and the vertical. In Brazilian maturity model, the axis is a dimension and institutional capability with strategy, infrastructure, data monitoring, and service and solutions. In Brazil, the cities have many problems with planning, tecnologia, infrastructure, and institutional capability, making managers informations and about our cities. This is in detail the difference between I2 model and Brazilian model. Multidimensionality, 3 dimensions for I2, 7 dimensions for Brazil. Pardon, 4 dimensions to Brazil. Level, 5 levels in I2, 7 levels in Brazil. Indicators types, core and the additional is similar, and the H is similar too, okay? It's not very different, it's not difference about this. The model, the Brazilian model is adherent with the I2 model and 16% core indicators, and the 14% the recommendations de ISO, e 100% to the objective, the SDG and Brazilian charter. This is a dashboard for the system for the cities. Is a one general level for maturity and level for the dimensions: economic, environment, social, cultural, and the capabilities. Okay. The results is informed the radio results for majors and city managers, radial view for public policies, areas, and each dimensions. Is a platform only in Portuguese, and is open and digital for all people and all cities in Brazil. Thank you. I'm available, but now I have additional informations about the indicators. Brazilian and in I2 model in green, only I2 indicators in red, Brazilian indicators in yellow, and adapted indicators for Brazilian reality in yellow and green. Okay. ICT and basic structure. Brazilian model have 2 more indicators, base station numbers and the urban settlements, precarious, housing precarious. Okay. The others is same, and only household internet access is not important in Brazil. It's more important to fix broadband, wireless, and the others. And internet access only household is very difficult in small cities in Brazil. Okay, the mobility is more usual. ICT advanced indicators, one indicator more for Brazil, smart platform, né? One moment, please. Smart city integrate platform, né? The others indicators are similar, and the others informations, core productive, infrastructure, advanced indicators, environment for core indicators, environment advanced indicators. Well, this is our platform. Okay. This is a Brazilian maturity model. The informations about the cities is customized. The informations is for 5,500 cities, diverse cities, for all the people, and in the platform digital. Thank you, and my apologies, I'm Brazilian and my English is not very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Luisa. My Portuguese is very bad, unfortunately, either, so no worries about that. What the points you made, especially at the very beginning, when you said that it's an intelligent platform instead of a smart platform, that's probably also a language thing, but it's an interesting point that you have made. Another thing that we also need to take into consideration, that you mentioned that more than 2,000 cities don't have master plans, and I mean that's not only the case in Brazil. That I think that's the case across the world. That there are many cities that simply do not have those master plans that they should have, and that's also why. And I think it's important. Then Orkan indirectly mentioned it, but I think we should also look at the SDGs and make sure that the SDGs are all implemented across the world. One more point that I would like to also address before I open the floor for questions is you said the characterization, the info about the cities. This is actually something that Okan, Christina, and many others of our groups have already discussed, and we called it the level of integration, whether it was the economic integration or the size of the city, or whether it is the geographic location. So this is interesting that you called it characterization, but this is something that I think has already been involved in the KPI system and in everything that we have discussed in the maturity system. But without further ado, I simply would like to open the floor and ask my first question to Okan. And this would be, can you give an example to illustrate how you can apply smart, sustainable city impact assessment? And Okan, I know that you could talk for hours on that, but just try to keep it a little bit like in 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
The floor is yours, Okan.
All right. Thank you, Barbara. Please don't hesitate to interrupt me. I'll just take one example, maybe a simpler one. Let's take, for example, digitalization of public services or government services in a city as an example. If we digitize, so normally you would, physically go to the public center, service centers or public government organizations to do your transactions by giving, the paperwork and everything. Now, when we digitalize and do things online, let's say we want to assess the impact on the city. If you look at it from the social perspective, most likely, again, it depends on the city itself, but one immediate social impact would be that it would be easier for citizens to do it online. It would save their time. It would be seamless for them. So time saving might be one major issue on the positive side. And ease of use, convenience, and all of those, seamlessness. But on the other side, we can also look at it, maybe one example on the adverse side. Not everyone knows how to use these systems online, how to conduct services online. So the adverse side might be that, especially if the population that's not digitally literate, then that might cause almost an unintentional divide in the city. Those who cannot do it, conduct it online, versus those who can do it. So that would be on the social side, just an example, and there might be others also. But due to time limitations, I just want to give this example. When we go to the economic side.
Please do go to the economic side, because I think this is very important. Because after all, who creates jobs and who pays the taxes, and where do we pay all those services that a city provides? So if you could elaborate on that as well, I'd be very happy, because you touched upon it slightly with your slides. So could you look at that as well?
Yep. So again, simply, if you look at it from the economic side, I will take the simplest approach. Let's look at it from the business's side and also from the government side. If you are a business, normally doing transactions with the government, again, you have someone employed, or you outsource it to an organization, you pay certain fees, they go and spend real time doing these things with the government. And if you think about it, just a simple visit, a round trip might take at least 2 hours to only apply for a simple government transaction, let's say. If you look at that time spent and the salary for the person who is conducting the transactions, if you only calculate that, that's actually not a small amount for hundreds of millions of public transactions that happen every year, or even billions in some cases. So all of a sudden, and I've done that actually for Dubai, back of the envelope calculation, immediately you come up with maybe handful percentages of the GDP savings on the business side. And this is immediate saving on the private sector. So there's a huge actually benefit for the business, and for businesses, it's actually, to be honest with you, just a formality. It's just administrative bureaucracy almost, because they want to get things done, but they need approvals. They need to get these things done, approved by the government. So to them, it's just a matter of getting it done. It's a waste of time, but also money, on the other hand, from the simple calculation that I mentioned. Now, this is the business side as an example. On the government side, on the other hand, the same thing applies. There are people that are shuffling papers in the front office with the customers, whether it's individuals or businesses that I mentioned. Again, hundreds of millions of transactions. Doing a back of the envelope calculation, the time that they spend, even if it's 10 minutes per transaction, to just get the papers and get the transaction going, even if it's only 10 minutes, when you sum up hundreds of millions of transactions, you look at, again, a handful of percentage of almost government time spent on that maybe not so essential task. And you can convert it to money, because there are salaries paid to these public sector employees, civic servants, civil servants. And who pays for those? The public pays also. Can we, get rid of this almost, I would say, for the lack of a better word, bureaucracy? Yes, we can, through the digital services. So that's on the economic side. I want to highlight one more thing on the economic side. It's a bit more complicated, but from the business side, if you can also, for example, make the back office not just the application of a public sector transaction, but if you can simplify the back office processes by digitally transforming them, that'll also push the overall economy much faster. Suppose you are building a warehouse. Just to get the approvals for the warehouse might take you 2 months or 3 months. And that's going to delay your business, actually, because you cannot operate your warehouse. I'm just giving it as an example. Apply it to construction, to trade, to mobility. All of a sudden, your economy almost has a break until things get approved, and then you can do these things. So that is some other side. That's another side that needs to be modeled. It can be modeled, but there's also huge benefit, economic benefits on that from the economic side, from the private sector side. And then the environmental side, again, doing public transactions online. Since you are circumventing the need to travel, that means you are, again, saving from the travel time, not only the time as we mentioned on the social side, but also the greenhouse gas emissions that you would normally emit. And again, hundreds of millions of trips or billions of trips that we are talking about, that really sums up quite a bit, which is, not necessarily an essential thing to do. So that would be on the environment side, actually, to get rid of all these, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, or carbon dioxide emissions for conducting public transactions. It's just a simple example, illustrating the three dimensions that I mentioned: the social, the economic, and the environmental one. I hope I didn't confuse you, Barbara, and the participants also.
You definitely did not confuse me, because I'm on your page with that. And, given the lockdown crisis and the consequences of COVID, I think we definitely need to focus on more digitalization and exactly those points that you have mentioned, and support those cities that have not had the opportunity, or the citizens that have not had the opportunity to be part of this global digital environment. So I will come back to you also with regards to this a little bit later if we have time, but I have a question now for you, for Yun. And Yun, could you please give us examples if there is any smart city measurement activities actually using the maturity model in China? Yun, can you hear us? Are you with us still? Yun, are you here? I cannot see you and I cannot hear you. So if there is an issue, then I will just simply go to Luisa and ask Luisa a question. What is the smart platform for the development of smart cities that you have described for Brazil?
Well, this is an opportunity for public governance. Brazil is a continental country, and sites diverse, and public governance is a big problem. And our state is provider, don't know driver, okay? And is an opportunity to improve the public governance in the government and in the cities. With the diagnostics and recommendations on the city levels of maturities, and improve administration public administration. Allow the directions of actions and decisions in the medium and long term. This is exceptional opportunity in Brazil, the platform intelligent or I2 maturity model for tropicalized countries. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Luisa. Yun just mentioned that you would log in again. So I repeat the question again to Yun. So is there any smart city measurement activities actually using the maturity model in China? I hope you can come back now.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sorry for the technical problem. Actually, China has started the smart sustainable city measurement since 2016, and we start with KPI as similar to what ITU approach is. And at the year of the 2019, that actually we have come up with the idea to take the smart city measurement, taking the classification for the performance measurement into consideration. So we are now in China, we are developing the national standards about similar the smart sustainable maturity model. And once the national standard is published, then it will be used national widely to measure the cities that are more than 600 cities in China. So that's the current situation in China. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yun. I'll now go to the questions that were posted on the FNA, and there was also one in the chat by P, and he asked about the circular economy, the climate adaptation, the risks, etc., whether they are modeled in. And I will simply open it to either Orkan and Yun, or maybe Luisa, but I think probably Orkan and Yun can answer this question right away. So about the circular economy, the climate adaptation risks. I mean, we know when we look at the KPIs that they are more or less incorporated already. And Orkan, I think, showed it on his slide 9 or so. But maybe you can elaborate a little bit more in depth.
Sure. Let me state it up front, Barbara, that when we did these two recommendations in ITU, in the study group 20, whether it's impact assessment or the maturity model, it was, let's say, initiative neutral. We intentionally actually took a very generic approach. So yes, we have to make maybe some compromises, but on the other hand, it's I would say, flexible enough to accommodate any kind of initiative. And having worked on circular actually cities in U4SSC, not in ITU SG20 per se, but on the U4SSC, there are even circular economy is a general term. You know, there is maybe waste management side of it, there is the social initiatives, there is all kinds of circular things that can be done in a city. So if we take the maturity model, it's still applicable to a specific circular economy or circular city initiative. Because we can do two things. Actually, you only illustrated very clearly maybe two important things. One is the performance matrix, the KPIs by stage almost that she has shown. So let's say we are doing waste management for circular economy. We have a baseline today. How much is, let's say, recycled? I'm just giving it as a simple example. So the baseline is 10%. We can say in stage 2, we will be in the second maturity stage, we will be 15, and then maybe 30, and then 40. And you put an eventual goal as a city. Doesn't have to be 100%, doesn't have to be any number. So it depends on the city's vision as to how much they want to achieve with respect to that specific initiative at the end of the day. So the framework incorporates that. It's flexible to accommodate any kind of initiative. The second one that Yunmin also has shown is the not the performance matrix, but the achievements table, if you remember. She said for every smart city initiative, there's a strategy, there's an ICT solution, applications, measurement. There were some columns there. Again, given a circular economy initiative, we can say, is there a strategy in place? Is it being done? Is it being communicated? Stakeholders measure, blah, blah. So you can apply the strategy of the initiative to that table, the ICT solution to that initiative. So they can actually cater for circular economy or even any other smart city initiative. On the impact assessment, I think it applies definitely. You can take any circular initiative and understand the social side of it, whether people are willing to adopt it, blah, blah, all their issues. On the economic side, are there savings? Are there, efficiencies created? On the environmental side, what are the gains from, maybe at least from the GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions perspective, or even others? So both of them actually cater for any kind of initiative. I know it loses a bit from its specificity because we made it so general, but that's the beauty of it. And cities can actually customize more based on their needs. It gives you maybe a good starting point, but you can build maybe on top of it based on your specific goal as a city.
Well, thank you also for pointing out this flexibility, because I think this is important to advance and to adapt. And, with external shocks happening, obviously, all the time, we need to have a model that is solid, rock solid, that we can use for the future. Thank you.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
I have two questions for Luisa. One here is from a friend from Argentina, from Luis Castella, and he asks, how is the level of financial independence of cities in Brazil from federal government to afford planning and advisory? This is one question. And the second is that also thanks for the great presentation, but also on the intelligence platform. What are plans to establish database for yellow indicators, the specific Brazilian ones? Are there sources of data for these indicators publicly available, or are they to be generated specifically for the platform? Luisa, the floor is yours. Can you please answer those two questions?
Okay, thank you. The platform is holistic and have informations about all the cities, specific, customized, and the cities in Brazil don't have master plan, and is necessary to know the cities for after working with the cities, the development in the cities, because the cities is diverse. And the platform is an object, is a performance for governance, for Brazil to know where is the seat, how is the seat, what is the seat. Is a continental country, né? It's very difficult to make decisions when you don't have informations. Informations for 505,000 cities is very difficult. The model for making decisions in public policies to know each city to develop from local to global. The platform was launched in October for all people, for with 114 indicators in 4 dimensions in just-in-time information. Recommendations and analysis is just in time for all the cities. Okay? I think that I respond the question. I don't know.
Well, thank you. We can also have another in-depth discussion if there is more needed. I now have a question for Yun, and the person also thanks you for the presentation. And he says, you mentioned in the 5 majority levels part that the levels can be adjusted by cities themselves according to their specific contexts. So from the perspective of Tencent, what kind of dimensions China make adjust for its specific content on the way of establishing smart, sustainable city? So Yun, the floor is yours. Could you please provide us with an answer?
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for the question. So actually, with my knowledge about the standard development and also the measurement across China, we can roughly take in the same direction with the SDG, which are they categorized into economic, social, and environmental. At the same time, in China, we also promoting the co-governance of city and the citizens. So maybe perhaps if we doing the adjustment based on the ITUT YDO 4904 to some Chinese practice that the co-governance of government and the citizens might be another additional dimension. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one comment by one of our audience and guests, and he says, as each city is different, how are the performance indicators selected and how its reference benchmarks selected? And I think I may answer that because Okan already touched upon it before, that it was generated in a very general way, and that we also look at the economic integration at the location, the geographic location, at the size of the city. So I think these and all those three things are of course incorporated in the KPIs, but maybe any of the three of you want to add on that. Okan, I start with you if you want to add in addition.
Thank you, Barbara. I completely concur with you. I think since we made it flexible, the idea, and we had those discussions actually explicitly during the formulation of the recommendation. It's not that we are just answering now on the spot. We had heated discussions on that, whether we should put certain reference values for cities, but we said, let's leave it to the city to decide on based on their vision, because each city has a different context. They have different constraints in terms of fiscal constraints, maybe in terms of scope of the projects. So it would be unfair to put everybody on the same almost, or put the same reference for all the cities at the end of the day. So we decided actually, I would say in an informed manner, not to on purpose put any global, let's say, reference levels for those KPIs. But having said that, the KPI definitions are there in Y.4903, U4SSC KPIs. So they have a rich set of KPIs that they can adopt from. But the reference levels is based on their division, on their vision, and to what extent really they want to go within their specific initiative.
And I think, let me also add that it's very important that we all incorporated the SDGs in all those KPIs in one way or the other with different weights. But I think this is important for the audience to know that we have been thinking in advance in our working groups.
I think the SDGs are the foundation. It's the background of all the landscape that we are in. I know I didn't say it, but you said it very clearly, Barbara. That's the landscape that we are operating in. So those KPIs are almost, since that's the landscape, it's emerging from that landscape as certain things that we can measure in the cities.
Well, thank you. Yun or Luisa, would you like to add anything on that, or may I continue with another question? Thank you, Okan.
Okay. I don't know, because the okay in your explanation is complex. I don't know. I don't have information about. Okay, it's okay for me.
Okay, Yun, anything else to add?
Not for me. Dr. Okan has provided very sufficient and informational response. Thank you.
I have a very tricky question now from Faisal Al-Fadl, who everybody knows, and he asks, how do you see the role of NGOs in the local city space? And Faisal, I assume this question is not only for Okan and Yun, but it's also for Luisa, because NGOs are different in each and every continent. So maybe I would just simply start with Yun, since she's online. Well, how do you see NGOs in the local city space?
I think NGO is very special and important roles in the cities. And because they are independent from the government, independent from the city and organization, they can represent the requirements and also the benefits and also the needs from different roles. So as an NGO, they can have some overall mappings and overall planning, and also they can provide some professional insight And sometimes they can also acting as the liaisons between different roles in city. So I think the NGO plays a really important role in city development, and especially for the assessment. So because they are more neutral.
And also how they are integrated with and collaborate or cooperate with politics. I think this is also a very important point that we need to address at this time. Luisa, what is your take on Faisal's question? The role of NGO cities.
Okay. In Brazil, ONG is specific in actions, the collaboration, but I don't have information about your concrete working. I think I think that work will be integrated, and all the people, all the stakeholders will be contribute. I don't know. I agree.
Well then, Okan, over to you. How do you see the role of NGOs in the local city space?
I think, when we talk about smart and sustainable city initiatives, there's a broad range of stakeholders that get involved in these initiatives. And of course, one of them, and one of the very important ones, is the NGOs. They can play, in fact, in my humble opinion, multiple roles. One of them can be even during the formulation of the initiative itself. The city administrations can engage with the NGOs as a stakeholder to understand their needs and expectations, their contribution, their vision, even it can be incorporated in the initiative itself. So the entire initiative can be shaped actually based on actual feedback from the NGOs. This is one side of it. So if we look at from the recommendations perspective, if you look at, for example, maturity model, when we put targets in terms of KPIs, NGOs can help us in some of them. They might even participate to boost some of these initiatives, to bring them to success. Maybe they can play a catalyzing role. They can accelerate some of those initiatives. Or they can highlight issues that we did not talk about. So they can definitely contribute in the discussion. They can even participate during the implementation. So not only formulation, not only setting targets, but during the implementation, the city administrations can leverage on NGOs to make these things happen on the ground. Then when I put my head for Y.4905, the impact assessment, again, it's a major stakeholder. NGOs are a major stakeholder for social impact. I don't want to go to details of it, but you can definitely engage with them on understanding the social issues, the economic issues, and even the environmental issues. So it's a very important stakeholder, I think, to consider, and not to bypass, in fact, in these initiatives. So they can be, they can have multiple roles.
Well, thank you. As we all believe in the division of labor and collaboration, I think this is the best thing that the best answer we could have expected. I have one more question actually for you, or this is probably with regards to your first remark, or your second remark. And Druba, he asks, could you please elaborate on how travel time is reduced? Is it by selecting shorter routes or by speeding up? Do you remember what you mentioned at the economic
Okay.
when you were yeah, okay, thank you.
Probably I did not make it very clear, but when we digitalize things, we don't just shorten, we actually eliminate the trip completely. So we circumvent the need, eliminate the need for even physical trips when we digitalize. So instead of going and waiting in the line, doing, let's say, public sector submissions for services, public services, we just do it from home, which eliminates the entire trip. In my example before. So I'm not talking about mobility per se, but I'm talking about governance, public sector, digitalizing services. I think that eliminates the entire need to do any kind of trips in the city if you conduct them digitally.
Well, and two last questions from the audience before I start wrapping it up, because I want you to give your closing remarks as well before I hand over to Christina Buetti. There is one question that goes to everybody on the panel, and it is a question for all presenters. How do you see the role of citizens, respectively ICT users, in the local city space? And I can also combine the second question, which is from Dr. Sunday Talkma from the University of Kashmir in Nigeria. And he actually asks a very tricky question for us, because he says whether our model is only related to the urban cities. If yes, what about the rural communities, especially in developing countries? If it is applicable to both, how can someone normalize the relationship in the geodatabase? And I just would also like to add that in Europe, we have had the discussion with regards to that Sunday, with regards to the regions, because we also have very small rural communities, and it's not only Africa or Asia where we see these issues, but I think it's worldwide. But I open the floor to our three speakers. I don't know who wants to start. Maybe I start with Luisa, who is too far away. How do you see those two questions, please?
Okay.
Luisa, can you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In Brazil, the people and the cities are integrated in the platform intelligence. We don't have informations basic. After launch the platform intelligence, the Brazilian know o status, the cities and the development do Brazil. Okay, the population, urban and rural. The platform intelligence not is urban cities, is rural and urban cities, and the networking around the cities for the integration and making decisions from local to global, not global to local. Okay.
Thank you, Luisa. Yun, how do you see that, given the situation in China with those huge cities and huge rural areas as well? Is there any advice that you could provide us with?
So I think the development goal and current situation for the big cities and the rural areas are different. So it's really not fair for them to use the unified tools to measure and to design their development plans. So actually in China, we have separate the smart sustainable development goals for big cities and for medium-sized cities, and also different from the rural area. And also some of the area are taking the digital technology and financial oriented, but some area may focusing on the farming agriculture. So they can actually, based on their current situation, and to first measure what they are currently stage is, and then make a reasonable target for their development so that they can spend their money and the time more efficiently. So that's my answer to the second question. And I also want to point out the first question, which is the citizens location in the
ICT users in the local city space.
Yes, I want to share one example that in China, actually a few months ago, that in China, Zhengzhou city, it has a big flood disasters taken. And during the during the recovery stage, actually, there is one online collaborative document has been shared, which can be accessed to all public. And within 48 hours, that document has been shared and opened and edited for hundreds of thousands of times. And the citizens in the city are volunteered to put information about where the needs are required, where the resources can be found, and where they can get the official and authorities to help them. So with that document being circulated, there are actually some bottom-up and self-organized actions and initiatives has actually taken, which gradually solve lots of the hard difficult that met for the city, which saved the lots of the lives. So that is the example I want to share. Maybe this can answer the question in some sense. Thank you.
It did. Orkan, would you like to add anything on that, or shall we move to the next question that I have from the audience?
Just maybe briefly, Barbara, I think on the first question, the comments that I made for NGOs also apply to citizens. They can play multiple roles in all these initiatives. From the formulation to understanding the impact, even setting targets, I think it would be good to involve them. I'll just give you two examples that I personally have been through, and it was eye-opening. We did stakeholder engagement recently for future planning of things with two groups. One was the Youth Council here in Dubai, young people between the age of 20 and 30, and I was just ears. I was not facilitating the session, but attending it from a strategic perspective. Honestly, the ideas that they come up with, how much they want to be involved, is so exciting. Being there and listening to them really opens up your mind and inspires you also. Anyway, I don't want to make a big story out of it, but yes, we have to engage these groups, especially young people. And then we had another one with the people of determination, people of disabilities, and they were highlighting things on digital side, accessibility issues, which are again eye-openers for us. Hearing from them really makes a difference. Instead of saying a KPI that says our systems have to be accessible, the reality is really important on the city side for doing things. On the second question, regarding the rural areas, I want to indicate maybe a couple of things. Even in some places, the definition of the city is not well defined. What's an urban area? What's a city? There are definitions like metropolitan areas in different countries. Even the city definitions are a bit vague. And I'm not just theoretically speaking, because I've done research while writing the scoping for impact assessment. We were doing research about different countries. City definitions are vague. And let's not also be naive. If we want to extend the same ideas to rural areas, first thing that we have to look at is the jurisdictions themselves. Are they, the rural areas, part of the cities? Who is really administering them? Who is managing them? Because some of these initiatives really require big scale for success. There are big investments that we have to make, and they don't directly apply to rural areas. So we have to probably have a different hat to justify them, to understand them, and to make them work. But they can work. I'm not saying they don't apply, they can apply, and if they apply, let's go for it. But let's go through that rationalization before jumping to the conclusions on the rural side.
Well, I can only add to your first question that we have the same experience in Austria, and our minister in charge of SDGs has also opened this youth group, and she's super happy about the outcomes, and maybe we can exchange some of the outcomes and ideas just to elaborate and advance the global effort. I have one last question. Thank you, Orkan. I have one last question to everybody of you, And I would ask you to keep it very short because I'm sorry, I have to quit the second round of questions that I had prepared. But we have such a wonderful debate, and I don't want to keep Dr. Buetti shorter with her closing remarks. So the last question is by Marco, and he says, actually something that was indirectly already mentioned. Dear speakers and moderator, I wish to ask if from this excellent work of impact assessment and maturity model, there are any guidelines or instructions that can be derived, e.g. based on the KPIs as input to technical standardization or technical specifications. And I think indirectly this question has been answered by all the three of you. But if you could briefly, in your closing remarks, like 1-2 minutes, add or include this question by Marco. I will start with the ladies, and Okan, you are the last. So Jin, you are the first one, please.
Thank you for the question from Marco. Actually, I think we have did some good examples in our previous work. We actually developed some tools and the models that can be applied widely and can be adjusted based on the situation of the circumstances. So that is the common part. That is also a technical part to provide the sufficient tools which can be applied globally. So I think that is kind of the technical aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Yun. Luisa, anything you want to add on that?
Okay, thank you. I think the management, participation, inclusion for digital transformation is a problem for South countries, not North global countries, because management is common, verified in North global. In this sense, we need tools for identify informations and solutions for small countries with yours realities is very different. When North Global is a driver state, South Global is a provider state normally, because the governance is not very good. Okay, and I think that integration and collaboration is fundamental in this case. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luisa. So the last is Okan, and I also would like to ask him or answer him this question, but I also would like to add, can impact assessment be used to help finance smart, sustainable city projects? Because I think this is all dear to us, and without that, I think we should not close the session without an answer to that. So Okan, the floor is yours before I hand over to Christina.
Okay, Barbara, on the first question, if I understood it correctly from Marco, he mentioned technical specifications. I think we have some pointers. For example, if we take the maturity model, if you look at the achievement matrix that Yunli has shown us, certain levels of maturity require integration between systems, interoperability, integration, them talking to each other, all these systems that are disparate in the city. So that's a direct requirement actually for architecture, for interoperability. And when I say systems, I'm talking about applications, the ICT, the infrastructure at different layers of the city. So there is a need for it. And then when we look at KPIs also, because we keep talking about KPIs, levels, and all of those. And usually those KPIs are distributed in a city. They are collected from different entities. It's not coming just from one source, actually. It's coming from, disparate sources in the city. What we did also in Q7, there's another recommendation that we issued. In fact, it's been approved already, a blockchain-based, in other words, I don't want to talk about blockchain, but decentralized way of, a trusted, decentralized way of collecting those KPIs. And the KPIs, the initial KPIs were the driver for it. Then we said, okay, how can we implement this decentralized scenario that we have in the cities through a recommendation, through a standard? So KPIs were done, but the method of collection was not there. So that actually has instigated the need for collecting it in a trusted manner from a decentralized city perspective. So there are all these things that are hidden almost. I don't want to say hidden, but they are implied in these recommendations that we have done. So I think there's further, need to enhance on those in terms of technical specifications. Regarding your question, Barbara, it's a very important topic, in fact, financing for smart, sustainable city initiatives. Now, especially given the economic and fiscal constraints that we have globally in the public sector, in the private sectors also, in the economy overall, I believe impact assessment might be a good tool to utilize to rationalize our decisions, to understand the implications of these initiatives. And it will also help us justify them, in fact. When we do the impact assessment, for example, when we do the economic impact assessment, we know exactly what they entail. We can come up with cash flow scenarios, how much we need when. And if we spend so much with these timelines, what's the return on that investment? What I see from the financing community, again, I'm not in the financing community, but I've been involved in some SDG 11 discussions. There is this concept of impact-based investing, ESG investing that we see. And there's a trend now because of the global situation that we are in, not just pandemics, but also the climate change. There has never been a better time for investors to finance these important initiatives for sustainability. But for them, when you listen to the financiers, very rightly, they say, we don't know what we are investing into. There's so much uncertainty, there's so much risk in it, but there are also very good returns on their investment if the cities can deliver these initiatives. Because imagine you are creating social benefits and economic benefits. You're hitting two targets almost, and environmental as well. So all these three things we are hitting positively if we do execute them right. But without them having that impact assessment, I don't want to preach impact assessment too much, but understanding the implications of their investments, they are also shying away to take big risks. So I think the impact assessment can be a nice tool that brings all these together for us to catalyze these investments as cities. I think, I don't want to make the story long, but I see a nice, soft spot positioning for impact assessment to accelerate and catalyze these investments.
Exactly. You talk my language. I think if we combine all those things that were mentioned, we will help the cities to become more mature and to become more sustainable. And without further ado, I would simply like to thank our three wonderful, great speakers, Yun Lee, Luisa Paceto, and Okan Gray. And thank you, Nasa, for opening the session and for joining us all the time and for being with us. And without further ado, I would like to hand over to Cristina Buetti, and without also thanking her entire team who has done all the background work and information, Chiara and everybody in the team. Cristina, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for providing us with the opportunity of discussing this important topic today. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you soon again.
Thank you, Barbara, for the excellent moderation. Also, a big thank you to all of our speakers for joining us, to the participants. I think that today we have learned that measurement tools such as the Smart Sustainable Cities Maturity Model and the impact assessment that were developed by ITT Study Group 20 are crucial for determining the best approach to becoming a smart, sustainable city. And this is certainly particularly important because many cities are looking to adopt smart technologies to bounce back from the impacts brought on by the global pandemic and make progress towards important global targets such as the Sustainable Development Goals. Smart Sustainable Cities maturity model and impact assessment are also a key instrument that enable cities to align the smart city strategy and vision to these global targets. We have seen that the importance of standards is key when cities they're trying to set actually their own priorities, and especially the standards that are developed at the international level. They enable smart cities to measure their performance. In ITU, for example, we have developed key performance indicators to assess the level of smartness and sustainability, as well as actually the progress towards which a city is able to reach the SDGs. And these actually key performance indicators are being implemented in over 150 cities worldwide. They provide really technical guidance on key aspects, including security, vertical integration, and much more. I really encourage all of you to join us in the rest of the ITU webinar series on digital transformation for cities and communities and learn more about these IT standards. If you have any questions or feedback regarding the webinar or the work on ITU, please feel free to reach out to us. Please also be informed that the highlights of this webinar, including key recommendations, along with all presentations delivered, will be made available on the ITU event website, where you can find also our contact information. Once again, allow me to thank the Austrian Economics Center for co-organizing this webinar with ITU, and in particular Barbara Holm, that has been instrumental in helping us to promote ITU standards with cities. And last but not least, my special thanks goes to all the ITU colleagues that really helped behind the scenes, Gent, Gifty, Chiara, Mighty, that were definitely instrumental in making sure that this event was successful. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. I certainly did. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day and a very nice weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you. And the webinar is closed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. I will
Thank you.
available.
Thank you. Bye-bye.